Welcome to a presentation on the 12 DRIVE Principles. My name is Stephen Starling, and I'm the founder of the Roadmaps Institute and the developer of DRIVE. The development of DRIVE has essentially taken about 3 years. The principles are the underpinning or the foundation, so to speak, of the DRIVE model as it is developed. Essentially what it is the principles roll together the best practices and best approaches that encompass essentially what DRIVE is capable of achieving for organizations. These principles also essentially form the philosophical core of what DRIVE is. The first of the 12 DRIVE principles is to link capabilities to strategy, and we do this to increase performance. Essentially, DRIVE helps companies focus on improving capabilities so performance benchmarks are improved. So we can see here that DRIVE essentially is the bridge between achieving greater performance and the underlying causes of performance, which are capabilities. So in conclusion, essentially, capabilities are what drive performance. So if we're going to spend our time and management resource hours focusing in on either performance or on capabilities, I encourage you to choose capabilities. The second of the 12 DRIVE principles is to match the pursuit of world-class best practices with customer needs. So when we're trying to essentially match the pursuit of world-class best practices with customer needs, the customer needs to be at the center of the model. And that's what is reflected when we look at a typical DRIVE industry segment model, as seen on the screen. Customers are at the center. And the different organizations, in this case we can see two, a European division and a North American division of the same company, are striving to move towards essentially that center in trying to meet the needs of customers. They do this by improvement of management capabilities on the different spokes or enterprise threads that lead into essentially customer satisfaction in the center. The third of the 12 DRIVE principles is to integrate paradigms by selecting the best attributes of each. Essentially, DRIVE serves as an umbrella that encompasses or covers many different paradigms that have existed in the past and are currently being utilized by industry and organizations in the present. And in fact, the whole idea of DRIVE is not to be a paradigm unto itself, but is to essentially be a paradigm integrator. So the next big movement that comes up, and there will be one, essentially DRIVE will incorporate that into the various world-class management step charts that consist of the different models. Four, rationalize collaborative relationships to develop profitable alliances. It always amazes me when you go into companies and you ask them, what type of relationships do you have with your customers and with your suppliers? Have you actually gone in and measure and analyze, are they collaborative relationships? Are they transactional? Or do you even have, say, alliances or what you call a partnership perhaps? In any case, a rationalization looks at your customers and your suppliers and rationalizes essentially where they fall in terms of the type of relationship you have. You can extend this analysis out to companies and organizations that are not necessarily your customers or suppliers, but yet you want to collaborate with. Five, develop and manage optimized project portfolios. At the very beginning of learning DRIVE, organizations will learn about the idea of the efficient frontier and how we want to try to be on the edge of the efficient frontier and have essentially an optimized project portfolio based upon our resources we have available. We can see this essentially here from this very simple figure where project portfolio A would obviously be preferred to project portfolio B or project portfolio C. Why would it be preferred? Because the return. on the investment in the projects has a higher return of $6 million versus $5 million versus $4 million. Now, ironically here, or interestingly enough, many companies choose to actually operate at below their efficient frontier. This certainly brings up the situation where they have less competitive capability than companies which do operate on the edge of the frontier. Six, plan for the horizon to attain future competitive advantage. Here we see a figure that will be described later in another presentation. However, let's take a glance at it right now. We can see the very top curve is what we call the robust horizon. Essentially, this is the horizon of infeasible projects that we cannot yet put into our project portfolio. But yet, if we think about them now in the present, without adding them to our project portfolio, we can start to plan for the capabilities perhaps we need to be having in place in the future to be able to have this expansion of essentially our efficient frontier to make us more competitive against other organizations. Seven, reduce and eliminate waste in your organization and your alliances. Essentially, the elimination of waste is a fundamental need of all organizations that strive to become world-class. And the reduction and elimination of waste has certainly been a tenet of many different paradigms that you could call essentially management paradigms that have come up in the past for business. And DRIVE takes as a paradigm integrator and incorporates the best practices of different paradigms like continuous improvement, just-in-time, re-engineering, process value analysis, if you want to call that a paradigm, Six Sigma, and other waste reduction approaches. Eight, share knowledge while still protecting competitive advantage. One of the biggest arguments against developing collaborative relationships is this idea of sharing knowledge. Because most companies are very concerned about proprietary information and protecting essentially their competitive advantage based upon the knowledge they do hold. DRIVE is designed to help organizations share knowledge while maintaining each firm's proprietary information. Now, the scope of this presentation does not allow me to go into why or how DRIVE is able to maintain each firm's proprietary information. You'll just have to look a little bit deeper into what it is that DRIVE does. Nine, respect all people and maintain the highest ethical standards. One of the wonderful benefits of DRIVE is that it fosters respect and ethical behavior. It does this by emphasizing long-term and lasting relationships. This is human nature. Essentially, if you're going to be interacting with somebody into the future, which occurs when you have a long-term lasting relationship with perhaps the people associated with the company you're working with, then you're going to be focused on trying to make sure that what you're doing is done with integrity, is ethical, and done with the greatest honesty possible. Educate across functions, divisions, enterprises, and alliances. Essentially, education is required to achieve world class. There's no way around this. If you're going to try to increase your capabilities, you are certainly going to have to educate your people to be able to achieve those capabilities. DRIVE is designed to be implemented in unison with education programs. So if you are going to be trying to initiate a DRIVE initiative, then you will need to have education programs linked into it. Education programs become part of each organization's journey to both world-class and collaborative advantage. DRIVE principle number 11. Provide tangible management, commitment, and trust. DRIVE provides tangible metrics of management commitment. How does it do this? Well, Essentially, what you're looking at when you initiate Drive is you're doing an analysis of where your organization is against world class. So one of the very first metrics that management is going to have, and that will reflect essentially their commitment, is essentially what is called a Drive score. And this score could be broken down to scores associated with each of the different core competencies. In any case, the point is that in a given annual year, you will end up with some tangible metrics that then the next year we can compare against and discover, have we improved or have we not? And why have we not? Or why have we improved? Well, we can link that back to essentially the different projects that were selected to go into our portfolio to become part of our roadmap that then leads to this improvement or lack of improvement. Drive also provides tangible metrics of trust between organizations. And it does this through two processes, the roadmap process and the robust process, which you will learn about if you look into Drive any further. Essentially, what you're going to discover is that opportunities between different organizations are created in a way that they become tangible and measurable so that we can actually count the number of different activities that we are doing with our suppliers, customers, and perhaps alliances outside of our supply chains. In any case, the point is that we end up with tangible metrics of trust, if you would like to call essentially collaborative projects being part of a trust metric. (12) Focus simultaneously on all of the above. All of the 11 principles mentioned thus far essentially are encompassed within roadmaps, which are the final result of Drive. Roadmaps are developed at both the organizational level, or division, business unit, whatever you want to call it, and then also at the enterprise level, which is multiple divisions coming together, and these are called enterprise roadmaps, and then also essentially at the alliance level, which are alliance roadmaps. Together, these three different types of roadmaps are combined and integrated together to form what the Roadmaps Institute calls robust roadmaps. And when we look at robust roadmaps and what it takes to generate and create them, these are tangible, you can actually go in and see what it is are the plans of your organization, your enterprise, and your alliance. These plans essentially encompass all of the principles that we have mentioned thus far. So essentially, instead of just saying at the end of a big list like you see so commonly with these different management approaches in the past, then with Drive we actually have a tangible methodology for simultaneously improving or working on the first 11 principles. So that brings us to the end of the presentation on the 12 Drive principles. I'd like to tell you a little bit about a 13th principle, at least one that I firmly believe in, but we couldn't really put into the list. And the 13th principle is essentially to have fun in what it is you're doing. And this is missing in so many different business environments. And Drive, because it focuses on proactive approaches and focuses on world class, which you can't focus any higher than that. And you can't focus any higher than working with your alliance members also. So it should foster the opportunities, at least, for having enjoyment with what it is we're doing at work. And I strongly encourage you to try to find ways to make the implementations and the initiatives associated with Drive to be enjoyable.